Hi guys, welcome to the Improvement Season podcast. It is me, Steve Hall, in the dark. I'm in Australia. No, I'm not actually in Australia. Well, you can tell where I am because I've my fucking studio behind me. That was really dumb. Unless you're listening, but then you wouldn't have known it was dark. We're not going to restart this intro. It's still rolling. Pascal, you're in the light. How's it going in there?
It's bright here.
This is how I keep such a pale complexion, is I live most of my life in the shadows.
I thought so. Maybe you're a vampire, so. But one of those kind of, what is it? 6-7 years ago, like HBO, when they brought out like
Buffy.
No. Blood. First Blood. No, what was it called again? First Blood? I need to Google it right now. First Blood. What was it called again?
I only know Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
HBO
that was a great
Vampire. Show. Wait a second. True Blood. It was True Blood.
True Blood.
Where it was just like all about sex and, kind of... that would be kind of the vampire you are. Like, coming out of the dark and then just like half naked, having sex with everyone. Dogs.
And biting.
Stuff like that.
Dogs.
Yeah,
this
probably something like that. it was really a weird show, but it was all right back then.
You didn't watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer, did you?
I mean, we grew up with that. So I watched it. Do you also recall kind of? I don't know what it was called in English. Xena. Something like this? No,
I don't know.
So very old shows. But yeah, I grew up with Buffy. But I think what I rather watched was Charmed. Do you remember that one?
Charmed, I do. Yeah. I didn't watch it.
With those 3 witches and I think when you look back now, it's a terrible show.
Yeah. But well, I could probably rewatch Buffy, although I basically just watched whatever my sisters would watch because they were older and they had command of the TV. So I ended up watching, I think Buffy was, I don't know if it's more of a girls kind of show or not. I don't know. It's kind of mixed. It's
Are you
kind
still
of like
allowed
Friends,
to say that in 2022?
Yeah, I don't even know. Yeah, you're not allowed to say it apparently, but it's so hard. There's so many. Actually, I speak to Charlotte about this sometimes. There's so many socially ingrained things that feel like you should be able to say something, but actually no, it's now become apparent because we learn and evolve as humans that maybe that isn't the most appropriate way to say it.
It's so funny because I just reposted that one story over on Instagram where this American guy went to Mexico.
Yes.
Very dressed up, like super cliche. And then first he interviewed people in the US at a university of whether they find it offensive and inappropriate. And everyone was just like,
cultural appropriation or whatever.
Absolutely. And then he went to Mexico, was then interviewing the people there on the street. And everyone was just like saying, no, you look great. Absolutely.
Yeah,
no offense at all. And I was just like, yeah, absolutely, man. Like, honestly, I'm a German guy. People can make fun of me. Like Mike, for example, always does fun or makes fun of German people, like Nazi jokes, sausages jokes, and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, it's all right. These are the cliches. I mean, I know that it's not true. The same goes for Charlie. When I had a discussion with him about it, he was just like saying, hey, either it's really meant, or it's coming from an honest place where people are saying like, yeah, I hate Asian people. And then, of course, you can say that it's kind of, I don't know, racist, inappropriate, or someone's just making kind of jokes about it and everyone knows it's a joke. I mean, I said it in one of the other episodes. I think that kind of comedy and everything around this, satire, whatever, is kind of, it should be that safety place because we still need to laugh about things, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think this is actually what brought up my discussion with Charlotte, because I told her about the reel that you reposted where there was that Mexican one, and I loved it because it was all the Mexicans who were just like, no, I love your outfit, and it was really nice to have that, especially in the day and age that we're in right now. So it was actually and it's very relevant to some of the stuff we end up talking about. And I think it is all about intent. Where's it coming from? Is it coming from a kind of like jokey, like jovial, friendly place, or is it coming from like a mean and like insulting, bullying place? And it's all in the tone and the person as well. Like, if it's some random stranger that comes up to you and it's like, I don't know, has a go at you for whatever reason, like, then maybe you take offense. But if it's your mate, then it's a bit different, or someone just like saying it as a joke.
Steve, to go down a completely different path now. After our conversation last week, guess what I've ordered?
Oh damn! What
Yeah,
the?
yeah.
Oh, I know. It's. I'm between two items. I'm gonna guess that it is a belt.
Yes, it is.
Yes, not
Yes.
the gym pin.
Oh, wait a second. What happened here? My audio is gone. No, now I'm back again. Is it?
I can hear you.
Yeah, perfect. Something just happened. Once again, what's? Oh no, my headphones. Oh, something's going on with my headphones. Shit! Please don't be. Wait a second. Is it better now? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So it is a belt. It arrived here today, and unfortunately, it's too big. I was just like ordering it in medium, which is normally kind of the belt size I have with the insert and stuff like this, which is though on kind of the further end of the spectrum. And I was just like hesitant in ordering in a small because small is fairly small normally. And unfortunately, I have to send it back and actually order a small one. But it felt comfortable, actually. I had it on and I was just like putting it on tight. And then I had a very hard time actually getting it off again, simply because it was a medium and I needed to actually put it all the way to the end, which then made it a little bit stuck towards the end, which wasn't the greatest.
Very cool. Unfortunately, you have to send it back. I hate doing that. It reminds me, I bought a Spud Inc. deadlift belt ages ago, which is like a Velcro one, very similar. And that was too big. And I sent it back and then I couldn't be bothered to reorder one again. I was just like, my belt fits, it's fine. So
I was really considering that. I was just thinking like, can't I just keep it? What about kind of gaining and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was just like, no, I actually have to then kind of change it to a smaller size. So I already sent it back here just today so that I have it off my plate. And then on the paper, I could even fill out like I want a replacement for smaller size. So I really hope that they are taking care of that. And then maybe for the next week, I will be ready to then deadlift with kind of this belt.
Nice.
And then I can report back on how it is.
I know this is slightly off topic, but half the podcast is anyway. With returns, I hate returns.
Oh, yeah.
But some companies make it really easy. Yeah. Amazon being one of them, where I've gone to return an item, like I want to return it because I bought, it was actually for the camera to get the right cable so I could use it as a webcam. And I bought the wrong cable twice. And so I returned it the first time and it was to just a little store really close. Oh. And the store does everything. So you just put it there, it like prints everything and you just give it to them super easy. It was like a 5-minute process basically. And then the second time I clicked to return it and they're like, don't worry about it. We'll just refund you. Keep the cable.
Oh, yeah. That's what Amazon does when it's kind of very small and very cheap things. I had it in the past as well with a couple of things where it was just like, can I refund it? No, can I return it? And they were just like, nope, keep it. And then here's the money as well. It's crazy, isn't it?
It is crazy. That's when you know they're minted. Like,
but we are also fucking spoiled now, to be honest, because it's the same when it comes to internet. Just like a couple of years ago, we were just like, this shit when it comes to having, I don't know, 1 Mbit of an internet download speed or so. Right now, as soon as the internet is just like a little bit slower, you just like, you go mad. And especially when something is buffering, I'm just like outrageous. And I mean, this is the same when it then comes to kind of shipping and return and all that kind of stuff. When something isn't free to be returned, I'm already kind of like pissed off.
Yeah. No, I'm exactly the same. And yeah, we are privileged big time. And I guess, I mean, thank God the internet has improved enough so that when like the whole COVID happened, people could actually work from home. Although I know Zoom, I think Zoom had like a load of issues at one point because too many people were using it, which doesn't surprise me. But you know, you evolve and you improve. And this is the beauty of the human race. And that actually brings us back to the evolution of our thoughts behind, I guess it was sexes and talking about gendering things, which I guess I did at the start.
You really want to go back to that one, or what?
No.
I wanted to actually take it into a different direction with the belt.
So did I. So I was going to say, where are you with your training at the moment? Because I don't think we actually even touched on that last week at all.
Since a long time, right? Right now, sitting at around 78 kilograms. So slowly, steadily going upwards. Feeling good. Training is going well. Right now in the 3rd week of my mesocycle, and nothing really to complain or so. Just of course the usual things with kind of small niggles, aches here and there. But this is something that I've realized. Whenever you talk about something here, you never really talk. It's kind of the same when it comes to Instagram or so, right? You only show the highlight reels there, and when it comes to talking about our update here, there's no value in just saying like, yeah, things are going well, because when things are going well, right? Nothing ready to report. And that's why it can leave the impression that whenever I'm bringing something up, that there's always something to be complained about, or that I'm always suffering from some kind of injury or so, which isn't always the case. It's just whenever we talk about that specifically, something may be going on. So, and then it's kind of like, what is it then? What's it called again? Some kind of bias. I don't know. Observational? No. What is it? At least the evidence that you have is very much just skewed into one direction, and that's why you then have the perception that this is reality and everyone is going through the same thing and stuff like this. And then when I'm talking about it, it could leave the impression that I'm always just injured, or always there's something that is not going right. And that is far away from the truth. But at the same time, I can really feel like I'm aging. I think I'm really aging. Some of the injuries or niggles, they simply don't go away, and more build up over a longer period of time, though, which is not surprising. I mean, we are now coming up to 9 years of lifting, with powerlifting at the beginning, not in the greatest manner when it comes to technique and execution, and I think it left its mark on me, or scars rather, when you want to put it that way. But yeah, we just do what we can do.
That's the beauty of bodybuilding, at least, is you can work around these things. You're not set on SBD. You can do a bunch of different lifts and still see great progress there. So that's good to know. And I think
curious though, Steve, what will happen then over the next couple of years, and when or if you're then getting to a point where you need to make somewhat of a decision that you don't really like. Right now, you need, or you can mostly work around it. I have very athletes who are, or very few of those, but who are very limited on what they can do for a specific body part, because they have such an underlying issue that they can't simply work around it. And if you're then faced with that kind of situation, I think it can get to you, like mentally speaking, especially.
Yeah, if there's especially if there's some lifts that, I don't know, you just love and they're a big part of your process that you really enjoy doing, and then you just, every time you go back there, you'll use, I know the analogy you often use is like an ex-partner that you keep running back to that keeps just like hurting you in the process. Like, just leave it alone, like don't go back there. So or like short changing range of motion, for example. Maybe you can't do a certain range that you used to be able to do. Yeah, it's stuff that like that. And it's interesting. I know this is a discussion that I've seen had where it's that, I guess, to talk about biomechanics, where a lot of them are about kind of not putting joints in specific areas and putting them in under pressure, and you can get away with it in your younger years and not so much in your older years. And I know our perspective, not necessarily coming from biomechanics perspective in the same way, of course it influences it, is like using full range of motion, using control and all of this. And it's like, is it, yes, these things help, but is it eventually for most people an inevitability if you train hard, close to failure with decent loads, that something is likely to break at some point? Not break as such, but like there's going to be something that isn't quite there, and it's going to be so hard to identify because genetics obviously underlying influence all of that as well.
Yeah. Also wondering whether we are just like susceptible to survivorship bias here as well. Because when we're just taking a look at all, I would say now, quote unquote, older lifters, older individuals who still do it, we can think of a couple of ones, right? Especially when we're then, I don't know, checking out social media or so. There are, of course, older individuals who are still lifting, but maybe there are, or not just maybe, but I'm very, very certain that there are a lot of people who simply can't do that anymore, simply because it's not giving them joy and pleasure anymore, because they are constantly dealing with some kind of, I don't know, pain, and chronic pain is simply not fun, right? And if you're then going into the gym and every single time it's kind of, you need to work around it and you need to be a little bit careful, and then all of a sudden it's flaring up again. I can definitely see why so many people are then stopping, because they simply can't do what it is that they've loved doing there, and then they are just like going down a different route or so. And at the same time, once again, I think that we are falling risk of survivorship bias, because we still can think of people who do it, but perhaps they are the exceptions. They've stayed injury-free and they are still healthy enough to then still do kind of resistance training or workouts, whereas a lot of people probably can't.
I don't know, actually, I'm talking to Jacob Templar tomorrow, who is a physio, and he's very big on, like, people will say you shouldn't squat or deadlift because that puts the spine under unnecessary pressure. They're specialized lifts. They shouldn't be used by everyone. And he's comes more from the perspective of the body is very adaptable. If you never put it into like pressurized kind of situations, it's never going to get strong at those. And so you inevitably make quite a weak kind of body, and so whenever you get into slightly offset positions or what have you, then you risk injury that way. So it's like, is it just like an inevitability? Like, you can try and take the really risk-free approach, but eventually you're going to get into a situation, if you want to keep adapting and progressing and overloading and stressing the body to grow something, because you haven't adapted to what this person's done, but this person's doing the more maybe risky approach, that inevitably is the same way, I guess, is you can't know. I think inevitably, like, there is no, I think this is what Mike said on a podcast recently, just relating to hypertrophy. There's no way getting around hard work and stressing the organism, and it's about being smart and intelligent in your approach to doing that. So, like, not lifting through pain, which I think I've at least, I know I've done that in my younger years, paid the price, and it's about trying to kind of get to a position where you're stressing the muscles, not the joints, and things like this. And that's where the SFR concept really helps, and things like this. So, yeah, hopefully we don't get there soon. I don't want to have to be like that person that can't do certain lifts. I want to continue lifting
for a long time. I really don't want to actually then stop, because, I don't know, some kind of irresponsible behavior or anything I'm like.
Do you sometimes find, Pascal, when you back off, like in a deload week, that's when some of these things, you feel them a bit more? Because when you're training, I don't know, you're stressing other areas and the body's not as kind of open to seeing the stress and pain from other areas. I don't know, but quite often when I get into the deload, I'm like, oh, that feels a bit off. Oh, that feels a bit off. And then when I get into hard training again, I'm like, oh, now everything kind of feels fine again. I don't know why.
I mean, the one is kind of... one leads to the other. Because I'm training then the way that I do throughout the mesocycle, it can then occur that during the deload I start to feel it. But it's not first in the deload that I'm noticing it. It's already kind of building up. It's just most present in the last week, right before then going into a deload. So, for example, my left knee, I would very much assume that it also has to do then with a little bit of a disbalance of the length of my legs, and also due to the hip surgery on my left hip. And this was the issue that I've discussed with Mike our physio, while we've been training at Yorkies the other day. And also the reason why I'm doing adductor training at the moment. This is something that when I stress that body part a lot with high intensities or higher volumes or so, then it gets very much agitated. And this is then something that I do definitely feel in the deload, but only because it has built up to this point. Same goes then for my rhomboid area. And when I'm doing too much for my back, then it can easily flare up or get severely tight as well. And this is, of course, something that is not just like happening from one day to the next, but often then it builds up over time. It's kind of accumulated fatigue, so to speak, or accumulated workload that is then resulting in some kind of discomfort.
Hi guys, Steve here. Just wanted to take a moment of your time to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we pride ourselves on providing personalized service that will take your physique and knowledge to the next level. If you're interested, check the description and sign up.
Yeah, I think it's like you don't necessarily realize how tired you are until you back off in the deload, and then you're like I don't know if you have those clients where they're like, oh yeah, I think I have another week in me, and I'm like, no, I think we should deload, and then they check in and they're like, you were really right. When I kind of went into the deload, I felt super tired and like super beat up. So it's like, yeah, it's just, I'm going through my deload now, and that's where I'm like, oh, my knee is feeling a bit funny here, and like my shoulder is a bit funny, and I don't know, I call it weird body quirks. I don't know if you get this, where even just in a session you can be like, oh, my shoulder feels really off, you're kind of worried about it, you sleep, the next day you wake up, you're like, what, nothing even happened, like why was my body like in this pain here? So it's just it's I think you can be too caught, like there's a middle ground, a sweet spot, like always. If you're like, every time you feel a slight discomfort or something a bit off, you're super worried and you're like, back off. If you do that all the time, you're never going to grow. But equally, if you keep pushing through things where there's clearly a sign and it's getting worse over time, you're going to lead to injuries and worse outcomes. And that's not a smart move. So, yeah.
No, absolutely. What about you?
So I'm deloading. So I finished the mini cut after, I would say I finished it on Friday pretty much, because I basically dieted as normal on Friday, and then we actually just got a takeaway in our Airbnb, because that was the easiest thing to do at that time, because we'd walked all the way. We went to Margate for the weekend, and we'd kind of got off the train and walked to our Airbnb. And so it was like, couldn't be asked to go out, and we had no food. So it was just a case of, we got a Domino's. So I got my Domino's in, which was nice. I always enjoy that. And then over the weekend, it was actually a really nice position to be in, because it wasn't like I needed to forcefully make sure I got to like maintenance or got to a surplus or anything like that. So I didn't need to force food in at all. But I also didn't want to be in a big deficit particularly, and I had no reason to be. So it's like I was in this like medium deficit probably, where I was like, I don't really know. If anything, I didn't even need to worry about tracking or anything like that. I could just like eat fairly freely, make sure I hit plenty of protein. And we ate out for a few meals. So I had some like fish and chips. So we went out for some like vegan brunches and things. But now, I mean, we've talked about it before, where there's no excuse not to hit protein. Like they just had these little premier corner shops basically, and they had like 4 different protein shakes, and they had their own brand of protein shake for £1. I was just like, this is perfect. I could just like pick loads of these up, get my protein in. I can go out for the vegan meal. It's fine. I don't have to worry about protein at all. So yeah, it was nice to just get away from the city a little bit. But I think next break, we've said that we want to get actually like in the middle of nowhere kind of.
Cool.
Because it was Pride weekend as well. Nothing against like Pride, it's great, I think it's amazing, but it was super busy, and like having Ada and just loads of people, and it was just a bit so just like middle of nowhere, maybe like a hot tub when it's cooler, something like that. That sounds pretty lush.
No, absolutely,
to get properly away. But yeah, it was nice to do that. And then since I've just been doing deload sessions, I'll start actually training my next mesocycle on Friday, because I need to catch up a few days, because we'll be leaving for a holiday, which we haven't booked, at the end of next month. And so I know this mesocycle, which normally I follow a 5-to-1 kind of 5-week training hard to 1-week deload.
Yeah.
To get those 5 weeks in, I need to start training a bit sooner than I normally would. And the mini cut training, it's not super arduous training. I feel pretty recovered. I would be tempted to already start, but I'm going to give it a few more days for, like, again, injury prevention as well. Sometimes having a bit more time off versus what you think you should have is also helpful in that regard. So I'm excited to get back into massing, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with how the mini cut ran. I got a low weigh-in of basically 10 pounds less than my high weigh-in. So exchanging some water weight and everything that's there. It's been a decent kind of 10 pounds in 4 weeks, basically. Pretty decent. So I'm pleased with that. And I'm also pleased because it was like I said last time, I didn't get to the point where I was hating it. I didn't get to the point where training was at all going down. I actually managed to see small improvements in training week to week. And I just got to a place where I was like, yeah, I enjoy food. And I'm happy to get back into eating more. So yeah, it did what it needed to do. So it was a great teaching for myself in terms of like when to take it and the benefits. And I'm waiting to see more of the benefits and how long they last for in terms of like appetite coming out of it. But hopefully now I've bought myself a runway up to like close to 200 pounds, maybe, or certainly above 195, which was like my ceiling before this. We'll see.
No, absolutely. Sounds amazing. Also, then I'm always kind of impressed how far you've come in regards then also to the mentality around food while eating out and the training mentality as well, because I still do remember the time, and that applies to the both of us, where we had a very hard time kind of even taking a holiday or 1 week away from the gym or something like this, you know. And this is playing the long game, in my opinion, and it's super cool to see.
Yeah, I think I appreciate that. And I don't know if, because it's been, I would say, slow in terms of how I've progressed, but even like I remember when I first started doing like flexible dieting and I would exchange rice for potato or something, even then my family were like, oh, this is great. And then when I started allowing myself to like eat out, like I'd have friends who are like, oh, it's really cool that you can do this. And now I'm slowly, like you slowly become, you get no further detriment in your results, but you become more normalized in your eating behaviors to like every other person's living, but it's still very goal driven. And that transition has to happen because to be your best, you need to be doing this decades. To be doing it decades, you need to find an approach that eventually gets something sustainable. So I still have room to progress on these fronts, but like you said, I've definitely come a ways.
The thing, so if you're not deep in a contest prep, right? Because I think a contest prep is always the exception. Kind of the confirmation that you can look for that you've made it is when no one else is noticing that you're into lifting other than your physique. Instead of then the habits around food. When it's the other way around though, something may be off here, right? Where it's just like people don't even know that you're into bodybuilding or lifting, but you're absolutely top aware, Tony. Make no exceptions. You leave no room, and everyone is giving you kind of comments about your eating behavior. Then maybe ask yourself of whether this is actually the right approach, because in my opinion, it doesn't really have to be that way. Whereas when it's the other way around, people clearly see that you are into lifting based on then the physique and the results, but not so much due to your behavior. And also you're even surprising them, where it's like, I thought bodybuilders were always kind of eating XYZ, and you're just like, no, let me have that pizza. I think then this is the confirmation that you'll want to look for.
It's true. Actually, it's funny because I don't often really post food on my stories or Instagram. I think it's just, I used to do a lot of it, and then I started not. And I think there was a time where I actually felt guilty for sharing some of, like, if I ate out a meal, and I thought, oh, people are going to see that and think I'm not dedicated, which is a really stupid mentality to have. It was just completely silly. And actually, I had some people comment being like, oh, thank you for sharing the photo of the fish and chips or whatever. And I was like, oh, I was just sharing it because it's like a cool experience or whatever, like on the beach, what have you. I wasn't really thinking about why I was sharing it, but I understood why that individual thanked me, because he's probably that guy who maybe a bit Tupperware Tony, a bit restrictive, thinks he maybe needs to be that way. And it's helpful to see someone maybe he looks up to, or someone he aspires to have a physique and results like at some stage, or what have you, to be a little bit more flexible. And I know I've seen that with some people in the industry where they've kind of shared that process. And actually, I guess someone who springs to mind immediately who does that is like Alberto Nunez. Like his current approach to contest prep is Alberto Nunez. Berto. I was like, I thought you just didn't hear me because I was like speaking not clearly. Now that I know that Bert is listening every now and then, I'm going to give him a hard time. I shouldn't. I was just going to compliment him with his like approach to contest prep.
Yeah.
Like that's like the next level, right? We're talking about how I've improved from in the past. Like the next level is getting to be able to do what Berto's doing to stage. Is like maybe that's like that could be seen as like the end goal in such like you're that in tune with it all. You just don't need these variables to be tracked. It doesn't have to be that you have to get that way. I think there could be arguments that some people don't want that, but I think it's really cool to see that.
Yeah, I mean that's the approach that I took with my contest prep as well. But you can't really compare that to Bert, right? Because he's pushing it way further, and I think that especially towards the latter stages of a prep where it's getting very hard, I think this is then the most challenging part. Whereas for me personally, it was the same, but this was just more so due to the habits that I had. So because I'm walking the same distance each and every single day, just due to habit formation, I just knew that I need to add a little bit more. I didn't need to track it in order to stay consistent with it and in order to know how much I'm expending or anything. Like the same goes for kind of nutrition as well. I was eating a specific way, then I made the decision of then really pushing it hard. Then I've made some modifications to just like the nutrition. I know that the calories are very much in a specific range, and then I just continued eating that way over the entirety of that time frame. It wasn't really just about kind of tracking the macros necessarily, right? I had a good understanding of where they were because it didn't really make any kind of significant changes to then the macros or the step count. I think it becomes then more of an issue if your day-to-day business is kind of fluctuating big time. You don't really necessarily have control over your nutrition. You don't really necessarily have control over the step counts, and you can't even estimate it because you know yourself when you are, I don't know, in a new city, you're kind of on holiday or so. If you don't wear your fitness watch, you would very much assume that you had a lot of steps, but you could never really tell of how many steps you've taken. Right? And it could very easily be that you then ended up with 30,000 steps, whereas you would think, due to your perception of time, it was only like 20,000 or something like this.
Yeah, I think it's you're almost tracking without tracking because you're doing the same things day in, day out, essentially. So yeah, it's impressive that like I know Berto even is like he's I guess it's like it's tracking without tracking. That's essentially, I don't know where I was going with that, but I guess that is where eventually, like if you can get to that point where you can get all the way to stage via that approach, like that's a very cool thing to be able to do,
especially when you bring a insane package. I think then it's becoming very impressive, simply because yes, you can rely on certain behaviors, certain habits, but there comes a point where things just will get challenging. And from a mental perspective, from a physiological perspective, and then making a rational decision of like, if you're not tracking things, of maybe cutting the calories even more, either in the form of increasing energy expenditure or cutting some calories coming from food, when you haven't really tracked that, I think it can be quite tough on you in that situation.
Yeah, I know this is where I brought up Menno, where he said he basically took that approach to stage until he couldn't, and he had to start tracking because he had to, I can't remember what the calorie number was, but it was a low number of calories. It was basically, he wouldn't lose weight unless he went under like 1,400 calories. Yeah. And to eat that little, he needed to then track, or at least there was an element of that. I don't want to speak for him, but I think it was something along those lines. So yeah, it's very cool to see that. And seeing actually this year looks very competitive from a social media perspective, which I know biases you, but also having been at the the first timers with the WMBF, like packed show. So it looks like it's going to be an exciting season for competitors, at least in the UK particularly. Yeah.
By the way, I just want to give another shout out to the Natty News Daily and all of the amazing natural bodybuilders out there. Honestly, I really mean that from the depth of my heart, that I'm impressed by the caliber of natural athletes that are out there representing natural bodybuilding, and that Natty News Daily is giving them, or putting them a little bit to the forefront and showing what's out there is so cool to see. Honestly, whenever I'm just like taking a look at Natty News Daily and they are sharing kind of stories from other people that tag them, I'm just like, there are so many great physiques there. And I'm just like, man, this is amazing to see. Honestly, it doesn't really give me a bad feeling about myself. Because it's not just like smeared into your face like, hey, I have a great physique. It's more like, man, I'm impressed by the amount of great natural bodybuilders out there with tremendous physiques. And it's just so cool to be part of that community as well. And yeah, just wanted to say, keep on doing, guys, what it is that you're doing, because it's amazing to see natural bodybuilding that way.
What I also like what they're doing, and I don't think they probably have a thought about this, which is probably also nice, but they're not just showcasing the great physiques. They're showcasing, and not to say that anyone's physique isn't great that they're posting, but they're showcasing everyone. It isn't just the creme de la creme. Yeah, me, for example, like they're not just posting pros and the freaks. They're posting everyone, the community. So it's great to just see that as well, where it's just like you can look in there and you can see some people that you can aspire to. You can see some people that you're like, I could compete against him, and things like this. So it's great to see that, and it's just like that's what social media, and we talked about it on their podcast. Like that's where it should be, building one another up, not breaking each other down, and hopefully having, like you said, it's giving you positive feels about like, oh wow, like there's so much potential out there, and it's just exciting.
It's just cool to see. I think that you need to have though a little bit more of you need to be a little bit more in tune with yourself, and a little bit more, I think, comfortable with the way that you look in order to appreciate what others have as well. Because otherwise you're just kind of jealous about what they have and what you don't have. So I'm now 35, man. I know that I will never become a great bodybuilder, but that doesn't mean that I can't appreciate what other people have and how amazing it is that they make it work and take advantage of that situation that they're in. Kind of like, I don't know, it sounds so silly, but kind of like that mentor who's now old but wants to see his kids grow up and be successful and stuff like this, right? I like it to see younger people grow up, do so tremendously well, and have just such a bright future when it comes to bodybuilding.
I think there's a saying within sports, something along the lines of like the not so great athletes make the best coaches, because they want to be like a great athlete, but they can't get there because of whatever deficits potentially in their genetics, what have you. But they work incredibly hard and they get themselves from like really shit to pretty damn good, but they don't go from great to amazing, which other people can. So it's like, I kind of view myself as a better coach, and I'm sure you're the same with this. Like you view yourself as a better coach, an educator than an athlete. Like I love the athlete experience, and I put everything into that. And I want to, if I could be my best, I mean, I will be my best to be my best. But if I could be elite and be the tops, I would be up there. But I don't know if that's ever going to happen, and I will keep an open mind to where I can go. But it's like, it's just a discussion I had with a client recently where he was kind of questioning, where does he fit in? He doesn't have, like, what is his strengths? Like, he compared himself to a few people on social media and myself. And I was just like, I understand, I relate, because I invest so much into this, and I see people who are like 20 years old with a better physique than I have. And I'm just like, wow, this is, you could class that as unfair or what have you. And it's just like, well, I look at where I've been and I look at who I can help, because there's tons of us who are more so average, and you can help them become above average. And I love to see what that feels like for someone, and the kind of the benefits they get from the process and all of that. So yeah, there's room for everyone in bodybuilding. It's not just for the top of the top in that sense.
On that note, I will just let our promo for our coaching run now.
Hey, Pascal here. I just quickly wanted to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we put a huge emphasis on the personal aspect of our coaching. And if you want to take your physique and knowledge to the next level, hit the link in the description below.
And now here we are back again. And in the end, you always need to remind yourself that we are kind of pedantic when it comes to those kind of things. What I mean by that is we are all spoiled. We are all privileged, some more than others in our Western society, but still, we are all so spoiled. Right? We have the opportunity of doing those things and and complaining about that I don't look as muscular as you are, Steve. But man, this is complaining on a pretty big level, right? And if we just calm down and really think about it, then in the end, we have a couple of years here on Earth, and hey, make the best of it. Sure, that doesn't mean that you can't ever complain, because this is just like human, right? But when it's over, it's over. And then you really want to make sure that you've enjoyed the ride and not just like, I don't know, compared yourself to a standard that it was unachievable for you or so.
Yeah, and I think also a lot of the time people don't really remember placings and things like that on stage, and it's just kind of all gets lost in the process and the love for it. And if you stood next to me and you weighed similar, like you and me stand next to each other, like don't really look very different. Like unless we're standing on a bodybuilding stage and judges are like marking us, yeah, sure, maybe I'll take the spot above you. But if we just stood next to each other, especially for just someone who, don't even someone who's just into the gym, they're just like, oh, there's two jack dudes, and I'm going to be like, oh, this guy has slightly smaller delts, and like, and most of us are doing this because it brings joy to our lives and not just for the stage.
Yeah,
even
absolutely.
For us, where we do take it to stage and we're competitive, we don't just do it all for that reason. Like, and in fact, the saying goes, and it's a saying I like, is like, I compete in bodybuilding because I train. I don't train to compete in bodybuilding. Like when I didn't first step into the gym and spend years doing it because I knew eventually I was going to step on the bodybuilding stage. The bodybuilding stage came as a consequence of being like, maybe I could show my hard work or what have you.
I would love if there are more people having that mentality, but I don't think that this is realistic, to be honest. It's the same when it comes to people parroting the phrase of like, I work to live, but in reality, nearly most of the people, they live to work. Right? And it's a nice phrase. It's lovely to speak out loudly, and it also makes maybe then your life a little bit more bearable, and you're coping basically. And that's all right, because otherwise we would always be like, if we just like see things as black and white, the world would be a very, very sad place, right? But at the same time, we also need to acknowledge that some things, they aren't reality, they are just like things to keep us maybe running and also motivated, which is also fine, right? But we should also acknowledge that as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I guess the question people ask themselves is like, would you keep training if you weren't competing? And I can ask myself that, and I would say, yes, I definitely keep training. Would I have the same due diligence as I now do? Probably not. I don't think I put in as much time into it. The same amount of effort, but not the same amount of time.
I mean,
I'd take more breaks. I'd kind of be less diligent with my nutrition,
but
probably.
also this is then very, very hard, Steve, because you've been doing this now for 10 years. It has become part of your identity. Having such ingrained habits is very, very hard to get rid of.
Oh, I bet.
And that's why it's the same when it comes to earning money. Once you have a certain income, it's very hard to just accept to go down a bracket again, maybe for a better lifestyle. Right? Maybe you're living a better and more qualitative life with more time for the other things in your life. But many people have a hard time actually accepting that drop in their income just because it feels nice having the money. But actually, they don't know what to spend the money on at the same time. And it's kind of the same, I think, as well when it comes to kind of getting... Now, we've been doing this since such a long time, having done it maybe for even longer than this, 20 years. Try to change your personality. People, the older they grow, the more likely it is that they don't change. It's just a simple fact. Unless something very, very severe is happening in their life, which just like kind of shakes their entire belief system. And if you then did something for 20 years, it's kind of so ingrained that I think it's even hard, if you know that it would be a good decision to drop down and slowly do less and less over time. I think it's kind of maybe like an addiction. Getting completely rid of it may even be hard. And it's not necessary, but you know where I'm coming from with this,
Yeah, I think I'd still, from the outside in, look like I was absolutely a dedicated bodybuilder. But I know in my head I'd lose that like little 10% that I used to put in. But certainly it's like people, like there was that reel with Arnie, like, why do you still train? Like now you're like 8 years old. He was like, it's like brushing my teeth. Why do I still brush my teeth? Or why do I go to sleep? Because like training is just part of what I do every day. I want to be that same guy, like in my 80s, 90s. Why are you still training, Steve? It's like, 'cause it's just part of my identity. Like you said, it's part of your identity at that point.
That's the thing for me, Steve. I know where it is that you're coming from, because you have aspirations of still becoming a pro at some point, right? And it is kind of in reach for you. So there's also a proper incentive for you to really keep on digging for bodybuilding. For me personally, what are my goals really? Like our external goals. There are no real external goals. For me personally, it has become a habit of mine. I don't really think about it anymore. I just get up in the morning because that's just part of my daily routine. Sometimes I am like a robot when it comes to this. Get up in the morning, do the same thing each and every single day, right? And perhaps I'm waking up because I'm getting a consciousness or so, and then I go out on a riot. I don't know. But when it comes to this, I'm just like saying, I'm doing it right now without actually knowing why I'm doing it. And this is not a bad thing, because, of course, the true intention behind it is to improve. But to what? Right? I don't really have a clear image in my head that I want to aspire to. I just know that I want to be better. I just know that that is something that I enjoy. And that's why I continue doing that. And I love the challenge. And that's what drives me. I think that this can also then continue to be kind of the catalyst and motivation for you to keep on going without having a specific kind of outcome that you want to achieve. Because once again, I don't have a clear goal when it comes to this.
And to be frank, I don't either. Like, I don't think about it each day. Like, I always makes me think of Matt August, because I just remember some of his old vlogs where he would have his whiteboard, and I don't know if he'd do this, but I have a memory of him like always every day, like keeping his affirmation of I'm going to go pro this season. I'm going to go pro. Like, I'm not going like every morning, right? I got to go train really hard, do this much volume because I want to go pro or whatever. I don't ever think about it. Like, I do it exactly the same as you. Like, it's just part of what my identity is. Just like, we're not going through the motions because that undersells the actions, but it's so streamlined at this point that like, I'm not consciously thinking, I have to do this set because I want to compete in 2024 and I want to have bigger legs and have a better V-taper. I'm just like, no, this is like, I'm just doing the process because I know I don't focus on the outcome. I
think your mentality can also be impacted by your habits. So whenever you set foot in the gym, there's a certain kind of reaction in your brain maybe that sets you into the right mindset and mode. And that is kind of go time. I want to focus hard. I want to progress without having like a clear goal in mind of like, hey, in 5 years, I want to be, I don't know, the best natural bodybuilder in the world or so, right? And I think that habit of setting foot in the gym, which then sets you into that mode, it's kind of like a switch. Also, they are kind of robot mode, or like I don't know if you've ever kind of seen something like a overdrive pedal for musicians or guitarists. So it's a clean guitar, you're playing it, and then in between the amp and your guitar, you have like a pedal, and that pedal is overdrive, right? And it creates a different sound. So it's kind of switched between those kind of the amp and the guitar. Whenever you press it, then it's kind of in that overdriven mode, right? That kind of mode. And it's kind of the same thing here as well. You don't really think about it. Once you set foot into the gym, you hit that pedal, and then all of a sudden things are just like a little bit differently up in your head as well. And because of that, I think that also the goal setting may already be ingrained, and that the goal is to get better and to progress, because that automatically implies that at some point you will look better and probably your initial goals are still being ticked off.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so important also to have a program, because then it just allows you to get into that like athlete mode of when you're in the gym of this is what I'm doing today. Like this is why I hate I've done a few sessions like this where I've just like randomly gone into the gym. It's very rare that I do this, where I just like, I know I'm doing pull and I'm like, I do like a bit of this and I do a bit of that. And basically I just end up following exactly my same structure as what I normally would do, just different machines or something. So it's nice sorry, I was just going to say, it's nice just going to the gym. I almost know exactly what numbers I want to hit. Load, reps, sets, almost everything. And there's maybe a small few changes, but it's nice to just switch off and be like, athlete mode.
This is what I had when I severely injured myself after the snowboarding trip with my left arm, and then also the ankle on my right foot. I was just going in there and I had no idea what I was able to do. So I was just like, can I do this movement? Should I go over there, try this? And I was kind of a little bit stuck. I had somewhat of a plan in mind, but I had no idea whether I could do a specific movement. And then all of a sudden, going in there, and I realized with the first rep, shit, that's not possible. Now what? What am I fucking supposed to be doing? And then you're going over to that new machine and you need to modify things slightly just to make it work, right? And just imagine training that way each and every single time. You actually don't really know what you are supposed to be. It wouldn't be for me. Maybe there are people who can pull it off, but it wouldn't be for me. I think it's kind of the thing with professionals in general, that at some point, things that you've practiced so often have become just like the mind-muscle connection just kicks in. You don't really need to think about it. Also there, perfect example with kind of musicians. At first, it's very, very tough just to play a very simplistic line. And then at some point, you can do it blindly. You can even talk with other people while playing that kind of riff or so, right? Yeah. And it's kind of the same there as well. When we are saying, okay, when I'm setting foot in the gym, I don't really think about much or so. That doesn't necessarily mean that we are not challenging ourselves. I would just assume or say that it's so deeply ingrained that whenever I'm going to the gym, the body and the mind know what to do. I don't have to get into that, I don't know, focus mode of like, yeah, now I need to bring it or so. I could see this for a competition maybe when you're a powerlifter, but when I'm training, I'm just going in there and I'm running the plan.
Yeah, I think it's like you switch it on for that set, and like if you're mid-set and someone tries to talk to you, it's like your death. Like I've had that. I don't know if it doesn't happen to me often, but I've ever had it where someone tries to talk to me in a set, and I'm just like, I see them there, and it almost angers me, and I'm like, right, I'm just like, I even more focus and ignore them.
It's funny because I just had that like last week. I was under the Smith machine, so I was just about doing my second set of the day, and it was early in the morning, and the chip to actually get into the gym wasn't working, so I wasn't really scanned or logged in. So she left us through the door, and we needed then to check in later. So she approached me while I was doing then the second. I was just unracking it, right? Just unracking it. She was just like approaching me. I had my headphones on and she was just starting talking. I had the barbell on my back and I was just like, what's going on? And then I was just standing there, removing my headphones and just like very quickly just listening to her. And I was just, all right, I'm coming just in a couple of seconds.
She needed to be, if she was 1 or 2 seconds later, you would have been like, nah, I'm gone. I'm in the set. There's no talking going on.
But I also don't want to be that guy, you know, like hardcore, don't talk to me or so, because in the end, I'm there nearly each and every single day. And I actually have a good time in the gym, to be honest.
After sets and between sets.
Yeah. And I'm also not there to actually switch on. Spend like hours there and socialize. It's just, I mean, let me do my workout, and then afterwards or before that, we can easily have a good conversation. But I don't know. Maybe that's also why whenever we are training together, you always like say, "Hey, Pascal, you're already finished."
I swear your sessions take half the time of mine. But I was actually training with, I think I mentioned Jason from JPS. And he was like, man, these sessions take so much less time than for mine. And it's just, he's obviously in contest prep. So he rests he was like, I rest so much time between sets. So I'm like 3 to 5 minutes. Yeah. Like, that's a long time for me. So I'm getting back into it.
It is.
I don't think there's, so for me, I would be interested actually with your training right now. Are you focusing on any particular areas you're trying to bring up, or is it kind of just full body at the moment?
No, it's still the body parts that I've talked about before the off season, actually. So at the end,
delts,
or after
chest,
chest, biceps, or just arms in general. Yeah, and abs as well. So
abs. How's the abs going?
I think it's going well, but we will have to wait and see up until you're lean, right? You can't ever tell when you're gaining, and everyone who says like unless of course that body part is blowing up, but that's very rarely the case, right? Everyone who then says in the off season like, oh man, yeah, no, absolutely, your arms have blown up. I'm just like, yeah, no shit. You have also gained a shit ton of fat, and it's water tissue as well. Just wait until you're lean again, and then just compare yourself to your previous self under the same circumstances, so same body weight maybe. Yeah.
Especially abs. That's like one of the areas where you fucking don't know what's going on until,
and especially like as a natural athlete, you won't really see the differences. Like, of course, you will see the differences, but due to not the reason that you think are the reasons. It's not necessarily due to muscle gain. Unfortunately, it would be amazing if we could see those changes, that they are just undergoing so quickly that we can actually detect that. But often it's not, unfortunately. It's mostly just due to fluctuations of body fat, water tissue, glycogen, but less so due to true muscle mass gain.
It's where those little intermittent, like I just had those mini cuts that give you a little bit of a sense of, you can start seeing if areas look like they've improved a little bit. But again, once you've been doing this as long as we have, even during those, like, it's sometimes challenging to see that huge amounts of progress has been made. But I was actually the area for me that I think I noticed getting lean and I was really pleased with, I think some people relate to this, is my face. Already, I was like, oh, I just look better. My face just looks healthier. It looks slimmer. But this is a sacrifice I'm willing to make. But
it's funny because we've talked about it in the past. I have the feeling that the more muscle mass you carry, the easier it becomes for people then to be good with or accepting the fat gain.
Yes.
Because you still look very good even when you are bulking up. And it's unfortunate because it should, of course, be the other way around, because the leaner individuals or those with less muscle mass would benefit the most of actually them pushing up the body weight. And it's unfortunate that then there will be times probably in the first initial years where you won't really look as good, even when you're bulking up. And either you can live with that or you don't. But then I think we also need to accept that maybe then you are holding yourself back.
That was my whole adipose phobia phase that I think a lot of people go through, where they're just not willing to put on that fat because they look pretty shitty compared to when they're lean, because they just don't have all the muscle tissue, the lumps and bumps underneath that makes them look big. Whereas once you come through that, it's quite nice actually being masked up. Sometimes it'll just look a bit bigger, a bit fuller, and it's getting a bit cooler now, I hope.
So very muscular people, even when they have like a decent amount of body fat, they look good, in my opinion. I told you at some point, even here on the podcast, that when I started to lift, of course, everyone was exposed to kind of the heavy power lifters from the US, like, what was the name again? Dan Green and the Lily Bridges. Sure. And I liked that look. Like, very, very dense.
They were huge.
I mean, you didn't really know better, but they were just geared up, of course. Full to the tits. But at the same time, I very much liked that look of like, they were thick. But you could tell, man, they are carrying a lot of muscle mass at the same time.
Yeah, that's where it's funny. I actually don't think, I asked Charlotte this, if she can identify someone who's big muscularly or just fat. And she was like, I struggle, and she struggles. And I think that's the average person, when they see me in like an oversized t-shirt when I'm like peak mass, they must just think that's just some fat guy just like walking down the street. Whereas we can notice, we can be like, that's like this shape versus this shape.
It's so funny whenever you see someone on the street, which doesn't really happen often, and you can clearly tell that he's into lifting, and he notices you as well and gives you the nod of approval. It's kind of both see each other, not just quickly, and then move their way. It's so cool.
Yeah, I like that. Awesome. I think on that note, we can probably wrap things up.
Absolutely.
Any other news to report? I guess actually on the note of mini cutting, our mini cut movement, which people would have probably heard about, the group coaching service that we've been running, we've decided to kind of open it up so that it's not running in cohorts and it's just a bit more slimline, which I think ultimately is probably better for our audience who maybe know when they're going to mini cut, or maybe it's a short-term decision and they don't want like a particular start date that was predefined by us. You can be a bit more fluid with that, just like I was. So people can go ahead and they can sign up to the mini cut movement, which is basically group coaching, training, nutrition covered. We have a Facebook group for Q&A in case you're unsure about anything. And basically we kind of guide you through the mini cut to have really efficient fat loss and get you pretty lean in a short period of time so you can get back to massing or look good on the beach, whatever you want.
Absolutely. Sounds good. So links in the description below, probably also up here in the corner as well. Sign up whenever you want to, because it's now open 24/7. So whenever you're ready to start, whenever you want to actually plan it out in your mesocycle, free for you to do so, and then you can sign up and actually start immediately when you want to and when you're ready for it.
They get spreadsheets, like that's all programmed for them.
Yeah, you can pick and choose between
several splits.
six different training splits, 3 for males, 3 for females, a 4-day, 5-day, 6-day split. Then we, of course, have also over 30 videos available that will then guide you through each and every single step and each and every single week of then the mini cut, so that there's no question kind of left open. We will then be discussing a couple of things that may help you through the mini cut, some of the challenges that everyone is facing as well, and then a fully automated spreadsheet that will then make adjustments when or if necessary.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I guess people can think about it. It has algorithms in there that make decisions for you in terms of your nutrition, so you don't even have to worry necessarily about making those calls yourself. And you can always ask in the group if you're unsure about things. So
absolutely,
yeah, I'm hoping more people kind of look to that and they can get involved, because I'd like to see more people going through that and just like seeing the results come through. And it's like mini cuts can be great if they're used appropriately. So hopefully we get a bunch of people who are excited to get on board with that.
Cool. Absolutely. Then guys, thank you very much as always for tuning in. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, leave a comment in the comment section below, and then I guess I'll speak to you next week. Cheers.
Cheers, guys. So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Steve. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge, and I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.